Welcome to Element 3 of TPP for Essex Partners. Element 3, Brain Development, Mental Health and Childhood Trauma. In this element, we will learn about different models of the brain to help our understanding of mental health and childhood trauma. We have listed all the content that we deliver in Element 3 for the full Advanced Level TPP Schools and Settings training to give you an idea of the depth and breadth it covers. The concepts highlighted in purple are the concepts that we cover with you in our overview of Element 3 today. We're going to start off with some quirks of the brain. Have a look at these two lines. What do you notice? The arrows confuse the brain to believe that the bottom line is longer, but they're actually the same length. What do you see in this picture? Some people describe seeing an old lady with her chin in her fur collar, wearing a bonnet. And other people describe seeing a young woman looking away. Please read this passage. Now look at this trainer and think about what colour you can see. Some people describe seeing pink and white, while others see grey and turquoise. This may be different for people with colour blindness, but perhaps give us all an experience of what colour blindness is like. The point of all these activities is to demonstrate that the brain works quickly and makes sense of things before we can apply thinking or logic. Research tells us that the human brain is designed to sense, process, perceive and act on information from the external and internal environments. All of these complex systems and activities work together for one overarching purpose: survival. We would now like you to pause this webinar and click the Video 2 link in Element 3 from the Video Links handout that goes along with these webinars to watch this Brain Builders video. It explains how experiences in the first years of our lives affect how our brains form. Science tells us that stress of abuse or neglect can damage the basic structure of the child's developing brain. Without the right help, it can put them at risk of a lifetime of health problems, developmental issues and addiction. It's up to us to make sure that children overcome these stresses and have the nurturing experiences they need for positive development. A key point to take away from this video is that serve and return interactions are verbal and non-verbal. They create the building blocks of a healthy foundation. We've been asking the question nature versus nurture for many years, but what we now know is that the influence on development are a combination of both. Knowing this can help us understand that experiences in the first years of our life affect the physical architecture of the developing brain, so brains can be built and made stronger. This model shows how the brain can be divided into three parts. The brainstem at the base is the oldest part of our brain and has been found in living creatures for nearly 500 million years. It develops first in a human child responsible for sensory input and survival, usually by the age of 1. This accounts for 70% of the brain's total development. The limbic system in the middle is around 150 million years old. It's responsible for relationships and emotional development and usually develops by the age of 3 and accounts for a further 20% of the brain's development. The cortical brain at the top first arrived in primates only 2 to 3 million years ago, so it's very young in terms of brain evolution. It's responsible for thinking, learning and language, and this develops gradually up to the age of around 25. This is part of the brain that we in the workforce are trying to work with when supporting children and young people, and it just makes up 10%. This is another analogy of brain development, highlighting the effect of the amygdala found in the middle part of the brain, which is activated when we perceive threat within the environment. When we're safe and calm, we can access our cortical brain, or our upstairs brain, which is responsible for learning, language, reflection, morality, processing information and planning. However, when we perceive threat within the environment, our amygdala or stairgate shuts and we get stuck in our downstairs brain, which is when we respond in our survival mode, which are the 5 F's: fight, flight, freeze, flock and flop or shut down. When this happens, our cortical thinking brain goes offline. It literally gets disconnected from the rest of our brain. so the ability to learn, access language, reflect, process information and plan is not accessible to us. So the early years really do matter. Children begin to learn language and literacy even before they speak their first words. By the age of 3, 50% of our language is in place, and by 5 it's 85%. By the age of 4, a child's brain is 90% of its adult size. The portions of the brain which control vision, hearing and language development all start developing and peak before a child reaches the age of 18 months old. Like a construction of a house with a downstairs and upstairs, our brains are built from the bottom up, and early experiences literally shape how the brain gets built. We would now like you to pause this webinar and access video 3 in element 3 of the video handout that goes along with these webinars to watch this adolescent brain video. As the brain is not fully developed until the age of 25, it's important to understand the brain beyond early childhood development. This video demonstrates the importance and significance of the development in the adolescent brain. This final model of the brain shows brainstem organisation. This is how behaviour is organised in typical development when stress is managed and safe. You can see that the logical brain is in control. In this version, you can see how behaviour is organised when there is too much stress or trauma. The survival brain is in control and the brainstem reorganisation or nurturing is needed. Should you wish to find out more about the themes covered in today's session, we recommend these sources as a starting point. These links can be found in the video links handout that goes along with these webinars. We have now come to the end of element 3. Please be aware that the topic of trauma and emotional well-being can be emotive, and it's important to look after your own well-being. There are some useful links for accessing support should you or someone else you know need it. You can find this slide in the downloadable copy alongside our TPP webinars.